Hey, Doug,
Yes,
I think you have to mute yourself.
I have to do what?
I think you have to mute yourself. We can hear all of your stuff going on.
Oh, watching TV too. Okay.
Ah, okay. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. We have an approval of an agenda. Would anyone have any suggestions to make, or are we ready to just approve it as is?
Mine says first reading. Do we have a first reading for policy?
I think we have an updated agenda.
Okay. I haven't found that email yet.
Oh, it's September 14th, updated board materials.
No, that's the materials though, Adrian. The agenda does say
Well,
under
the agenda's
policy.
on there too, though.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So yeah, we may just want to clarify there is not a policy first reading tonight. We were wondering if we might have something come out of policy committee last night, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
If there's no changes that anyone wants to make, would somebody move that we approve the agenda? Anybody?
I see
George
George's
yeah.
hand.
I can't see most
So
people
moved.
on my
Gotcha.
screen.
Yeah,
Thank
Adrian,
you.
I'll manage the view for you.
Okay. Tell
So
me
George
if anyone seconded.
I will second that. This is Liz.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion? No, I will move, then I'll move the question or ask for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I don't see any no's.
I see all thumbs up, Adrian.
Cool. Then we will move on to approval of minutes and start with 7/20/2020. Does anyone?
So moved.
Thank you. I'll let.
Liz
Liz?
seconds that. Yep.
Okay, any discussion or changes? If no, is everyone ready to approve the minutes of 7/20/2020? Yep, okay. How about we move on to 9/2/2020? Same scenario.
So moved. Wait, don't we need to vote on those?
Yes, I did. Did you not vote? I said all in favor? Dave, did you get the, I didn't see anyone that said no for 7/20.
No, I did not catch that. Len, is that a no from you, or is that a?
No, not at all. I just, it went by me very quick.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I probably just sort of went too fast.
That's what happens when you get into your senior years. You get a little slow.
Oh, okay. I'll remember that in a year or two. So 9/2, we have a second. Does anybody have any changes for 9/2? No? All in favor of approving the 9/2 minutes?
I believe I see all thumbs up, Adrian.
Okay.
I wasn't
Move on
there,
to-
so I'm not voting.
Okay, so Maria's recused her,
Abstaining.
abstaining. Thank
There we
you.
go.
That's why we need Tammy. She has all the right words. Moving on to 9/3/2020. Would someone like to move for approval?
I will.
Okay,
Liz will second that. Thank you.
okay, any changes, discussion? All in favor of approving the 9/3/2020 minutes?
I believe I see all thumbs up. George, is that a thumbs up from you, sir?
That's an abstain.
Abstain for George. Okay.
Okay, thanks, George. So move on to 9/9/2020, our most recent. Would someone like to move to approve?
So moved.
Okay.
Liz seconds.
All right, are there any changes that anyone wants to mention? Nope. Then all in favor of the 9/9/2020 minutes?
I see a Diet Pepsi and a bunch of thumbs up, so I think we're good to go on those.
Okay, Diet Pepsi is approved. Then we will move on to public input and announcements. If
Uh,
we have, do we have
Refreshing the
any
list,
public?
no public comment at this time, Adrian.
Okay, does anybody on the board have any announcements that they want to make? All right, we'll move on to school year opening updates. I can't see if all the principals are here. I'm assuming they are.
Yeah, I think we have most of the crew here, Adrian. The intent here was to give the principals a chance to just update the group on how,
Yeah.
especially our remote learning is proceeding, and then to give Coral a chance to update on how our in-person services are proceeding. And I see Daniel, Tyler. I saw Jody. She may be on a different screen for me. I've got a limited number of tiles here, so I
Okay,
apologize.
Tyler, do you want to start?
Sure. This is kind of weird. 2 board meetings in a row. I get to go first. I like this.
I know, I did it on purpose, just to freak you out.
I appreciate that. No one wants to follow Fred, so we're all good.
Okay.
The opening for us has been, all things considered, really positive and really good. I've over the last 4 or 5 days, I've popped into a lot of our classrooms, our virtual classrooms. Kids are engaged. Kids are active. They are talking to our teachers. It's a completely different scene than I saw last spring. We have a set schedule that our kids are attending classes on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, and I'm really impressed with the level of engagement and really impressed with the level of I can't think of the right word, but engagement of our teachers and our students with one another. That discussion in the classroom, albeit virtually, is really productive. So in that sense, we're doing really well. And I've gotten a lot of compliments and encouraging feedback from parents and students about Google Classroom and how everything is set up so consistently. Strangely enough, we've had a couple kids, we're so organized on Google Classroom that a couple kids are saying they're having a hard time, managing going from class to class to class and finding the right links. And that's just something they're going to get used to. But we're finding ourselves that that virtual schedule is it's interesting. That no longer is there the kids live on the bell where they have to stay in their class until the time goes and then they have to move to the next class. It's it's a virtual move, if you will. So kids are getting used to it, but it's taking a little time to get used to. One little bump in the road that we're still working through is daily attendance. We're trying to figure out what's the best procedure for doing so. But we have a normal attendance. They check in with their advisory, and then every class has their own attendance as well. So we're working through that. We're trying to make sure that kids are checking in where they have to. It's kind of strange. We have some kids who are supposed to check in for their advisory, which is their normal daily attendance. And they're going to all their classes, but not checking in for their attendance. So it's just something we have to kind of work through. It's a natural little bump in the road that, quite frankly, we're going to have more bumps in the road that we need to adjust for. But on a whole, all things considered, it's been very productive. Kids are engaged. And another thing that's different from last year to this year is the amount of kids across the board, they're actually online and engaged in their classes. We're no longer is that kid slipping through the cracks. Where you go into all the classes and they're all there. So and it's productive and it's really encouraging. And our teachers are really working really hard right now, and their classes are, their efforts are showing because their classes are really engaging. So it's been a very positive start.
That's great. Nice to hear. Thank you.
Hey, Tyler, I gotta add, sorry.
Yeah.
Sure.
Add one more thing. My daughter still had to do the 5-minute run to the bathroom in between classes. So some things have not changed.
Well, it's interesting, BJ, you say that because just the way the schedule fell, and we wanted to make sure we were somewhat close to, on the hour class changes, if you will, and giving kids enough time. Between our first class of the day and second class of the day, we only have 5 minutes. And I've heard a little bit of feedback that that's just not enough, even though they're maybe going to the bathroom, maybe going downstairs and, and grabbing something from the kitchen or something like that. In our afternoon classes, we have 15 minutes in between classes. So no rhyme or reason, just to fit the way the schedule worked. We're looking, we might adapt and change down the line, but it's funny where 5 minutes at Mill River, going to your locker, going to the bathroom, there's plenty of time, but in your house, not enough time.
Does anyone else have a question for Tyler? Seeing nobody. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Jody, are you there? I'm just
I
moving down my
am.
list.
Good evening.
Okay, you're up.
All right. So we also have had overall a strong start. It's a little bit different at the elementary level because not all of our kiddos are fully tech savvy yet. So a lot of the beginning of the last 2 weeks have really just been to spend time with the kids, helping them really learn how to navigate remote learning on their own. So teaching kiddos how to get into Seesaw or Google Classroom, how to get to their Epic accounts, how to turn in something on Google Classroom. But the teachers are just doing that piece by piece, checking in, making sure that kids really get it. Like everybody else, we've, had some tech problems pop up. We've had computers that need to be reimaged. We, have had kids forget their passwords. And so we're just dealing with everything on a piece by piece basis. All the teachers have been in really close contact with families. And so that's been really helpful. We have large plastic bins that we're using to get paper materials to all of our kiddos. And so in these first couple weeks, teachers have been taking time to assess individual students and figure out where they are. And now this week and in the next 2 weeks, teachers will be sending home individualized books and materials to all of the kids through that contactless system. And that's been going really well as well. So we're just, plugging along. In any beginning of the school year, there is just getting used to things again, getting used to waking up early, to being on a schedule. And so I think it's important just to recognize that we're all in that stretching our legs period again, and we'll be just plugging along before we know it.
I had a question. How are new kids doing? That haven't been in our school before. I'm assuming we have a few.
Yeah, we actually have a lot. And they are doing pretty well. So, we're so lucky to live in small communities where people really know each other. And so a lot of our newer kids were able to integrate by, going up to the lake and meeting kids this summer, or just prior connections between families for people who are moving back to the area. Our in-person meetings at the very beginning of the year were really helpful for new kiddos because they were able to meet their new classmates and their teacher in person outdoors and get a sense. And the new parents, we've just been taking some extra time to make sure that we're in good phone or email contact with them to make sure that they feel supported and have what they need. But overall, our families that are new to our school have given really positive feedback about just being excited to be a part of it and enjoying their classes.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Jody? Seeing nobody. Maureen, would you like to go next? Or are you too busy? I'm waiting for my dogs to notice your dog on the screen.
So there's good and there's bad, but primarily we're doing really well, especially in comparison to the spring. I've gotten a lot of comments back from parents that the organization has really helped a lot, as well as the tech support. Joe B, for instance, last night had an hour in the evening for parents, a live hour for parents to call in with their problems and their issues and their concerns. And we've also sent out PowerPoint slides and lots of links on how to access the computer. Overall, it's running very well. The biggest issue we're addressing right now is that parents are having a hard time letting their kids give us the wrong answer online. You hear them whispering the answer to the little ones, as far as like they don't want them to make a mistake. So we have to encourage them to encourage the kids to make mistakes, because that's how you learn. So, if that's our biggest issue, we're good with that right now. Everything's going well.
That's very funny. Does anyone have any questions for Maureen? That's wonderful. Thank you, Maureen. I think that's very funny. Mr. Betts, are you on? I don't feel like I'm on a
Good
first
evening,
name basis
everybody.
yet, but go ahead.
I know I was thinking this evening before we started here that I haven't really been able to sit in the same room with everyone and interact, but we'll take what we can for now. Yeah, Wallingford's doing really well. Just like all the other principals said, there's some growing pains with the rollout, but I would say that the majority of the feedback that we're receiving is positive. I did send out a couple different surveys to staff at the end of the first week, and then another specific one just on the plus deltas of how the last week went, and what we need to do to make some adjustments along the way. And I would say that some of the big themes were along the lines of what my colleagues shared. There's a lot of comments from teachers on 100% participation, which is phenomenal. I think just those constant reminders on a weekly basis, revving up to the start of the year, just helped get that plugged in everyone's ears that this is the expectation, this is school, this is full on, and they're taking it seriously. The meet and greets, I think, were phenomenal, and we knew that we were going to have a few that had missed those for one reason or another, and even the days leading up to it that they had the opportunity to pick up their devices. But as unfortunate as it was, that first day of school, we did have a large number of people who missed come and get their devices, but they just jumped right in. Some of them joined that day. Some of them were off and running the next day. I would say the one thing that's interesting in the difference between in-person first days and remote first days when kids are provided devices is we had a couple snafus with devices that were worked on over the summer, and for whatever reason, they just gave up in session number one. But we were able to that same day have them come and exchange and get a new device, and they're right back online. So the turnaround was phenomenal. I attribute that to not only our tech department, but also the administrative assistant, Erin St. Germain. She's been a godsend for sure in this process. But yeah, one of the big things that really resonated in hearing the feedback from my staff is the relationships. That's been the big piece. So, like Jody said, getting to meet those people in person, getting to meet the teachers in person before the first day of school, I think that helped kickstart it. And then having the high attendance participation has been phenomenal, and our focus on our morning meetings on a daily basis and including some social emotional learning activities within those has really been building that relationship piece. And we all know that with the relationship piece, the learning is going to come. So that's been our focus, and so far it's being successful. Any questions? Bjorn?
Sorry, I muted myself because my dog started acting up.
Actually, I was going to go, this kind of goes to all the teachers. How about UA teachers? Are they getting the better engagement than they were getting last year? Are we already seeing that, or we're too soon?
Anyone can jump in.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
The accountability piece really wasn't there last time because we were just finding our way. But yes, the specials have their own site, so the kids can go in and choose what they want. They have a week to do it. But basically, knowing that they have to do it and they're responsible for it is really changed the tune a little bit.
That's wonderful. Does anyone else have a question going back to Dan, and then we'll move on to Fred because nobody wanted to go after him.
I was going to steal Fred's, I'll let him go.
Okay, Fred, you're up.
See, I feel badly about that, but I don't mind following my colleagues because I can almost say ditto. They've done a wonderful job summarizing things, and then I'd be done. But Tuesday we knew would be a connectivity day, so we planned that, and parents were signing in under their emails instead of the kids. So that whole Tuesday we figured out what we needed to figure out, and Wednesday ran really smoothly. The parents are very appreciative of the difference between the fall and the spring. And, it's really been a wonderful start. We were talking today in our leadership meeting, and we talked about how it's kind of analogous to a marathon runner with a pebble in his shoe. Dan probably wanted to tell this story, but our school team, the runners, are made up of the families, the support staff, all the educators, and of course our learners. Looking at the race, the weather is beautiful, not too hot, and that's because we have structure to our plan. That's the difference. This semester, we have structure to our plan. The road is paved and wide. Why? Because we have a solid schedule to follow. I think that's very helpful with the families, that we have a solid schedule. We have room to run, and there are cones lining the road. The analogy there is that we have taken every precaution, and we're all safe in our own homes. The pebble could be any number of things, any small little problem. It's small, but it could derail the runner. So it's an easy fix if immediately attended to, a problem if not. So our team has taken the better part of the week running around and pulling pebbles from shoes. And at the end of the week, we had a pocket full of pebbles, but that's all they were, pebbles. And all the runners are on course, and they're doing a bang up job. I mean, when I talk to the families, they're happy with the changes, and they're engaged with their kids, most of them. And I can't believe the excitement from the teachers. Every day I talk to them, more and more excitement. We're getting 100% participation in many of the classes, and just sitting in like some of my colleagues said, sitting in on some of those digital classes, it's exciting. The kids are all there. Some of them are in bed still like this, but they're all talking and having fun at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's going well. That's what I have to say.
That's wonderful. Does anyone have anything to ask Fred?
I have a question. George here. Fred, with all your discussion about pebbles, it sounds to me like your start was a little rocky.
You could say that, but no.
Oh dear.
Adrian, I have a question for actually all of the administrators, if I can.
Sure.
I had a conversation with an Otter Valley 7th grade parent today, and I guess they have started everything but K through 2. They've started remotely as well. And what she told me is that they have a group of about kids that are all in the same class, same grade, have exactly the same schedule, that rotate from one house to another within the 7 families. So they still have some time together with their peers, but they're all on their own devices within whatever household they're in. I was just wondering if anybody had heard of that with any of our groups of kids.
So I can start. So I do know that some of my families are working out arrangements for collective childcare, or to trade off to really, for example, a family who really loves doing early primary and a family who loves that tween age, maybe trading off. But I'm not aware of any larger groups doing home-based pods.
I can add to that down in Wallingford, they considered it. There was a group of parents that were considering doing that as well. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but it was the same setup where they go from house to house, and they were hiring tutors to sit with the kids and work with them as well when they're doing their work.
Yeah, I think Dave encouraged everybody to reach out for volunteers and whatnot. And so I think people had done that a little bit in our community. There are a couple of families that have connected their friends, and they have 2 or 3 kids together, but I've only heard of a few of those going on.
John, I have a question for you. Is that something the school organized, or was that something that the parents just got together and?
The parents did this on their own. It wasn't something the school organized. They did clear it with, I guess I don't know about clearing it with the school, but they did check with the school to verify that the kids all had the same schedule. So I'm pretty sure the school is aware that it's happening, but they didn't really have a hand in it at all. I just thought it was an interesting way to, yeah, give the kids both a little bit of socialization plus distancing, so there's some inherent risks to it as well. You got 7 families all sharing the same air now, one way or the other, but I just thought it was an interesting thing. I just wanted to find out if we knew about that happening here.
Okay. Coral, you are also on the list to have some input on year opening.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I had reported to the board at the last meeting that we were expecting about 70 students to be coming through the door. And we definitely made that quota for sure, which was really positive to see. One of the things that is absolutely just hilarious, honestly, but so we have all these little elementary kids now over at the high school. So they're in the big kids school, and they just feel like they're like on top of the world, and it's hilarious. I've been talking with parents who are like relaying stories, and I've been hearing from the staff who are working with them, but like, Mr. Wiedemann is now their principal and they call him Mr. W, and it's just really funny. Or Mr. Betts comes in and they don't even know Mr. Betts, but like that's their new principal. And so it's just really funny to see these little kindergartners and first graders like having 6 different principals that they like don't even respond to it. It's just like their routine, it's their life. And so that's really cool to see. The little kids so far, from what I have heard, are really liking being at Mill River. They're really liking being in big kid classrooms, which is kind of a incidental benefit, I guess. So that's been really positive overall. Instructionally, things are going as well as they possibly could be. We've had a couple of glitches with internet accessibility in the particular area of the high school where we're located. So we're getting that remedied. It's just a technical thing that just has to sort of it requires some installation. So we're working on that, but in terms of instruction, that has all been going off pretty much without a hitch, which is kind of cool. Transportation, we've been working out, trying to keep buses on schedule and trying to make sure that the right personnel are on the bus to conduct the screenings that need to be done. And what happens if a kid does miss the bus or, whatever. So, but in general, those are all the normal glitches that you see the first weeks of school. Those are not like unusual. Certainly having like screeners on the buses conducting health screenings and stuff, that's definitely an adjustment, and we're really settling into that. A few glitches here and there that we've been able to problem solve pretty quickly, so that's been really good. We haven't really, knock on wood, encountered a lot of health circumstances, but we are beginning to keep a watch on like staff who might be out sick or whatever as that circumstances arise, and we have to problem solve that when it happens, because if just one person is out sick, it sets off a cascade of dominoes that we have to tend to very immediately. So we're doing that. Yeah, so overall it's going as well as it possibly could be. The kids, from what I'm hearing and what I have seen, the kids are happy, they're healthy, they're actually adjusting quicker than some of the adults, which is not necessarily surprising, but the kids just pick up these routines and it becomes second nature. So we've been pretty impressed with that. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It seems to be going well.
Does anyone have any questions for Coral? Well, I do. Coral, when the kids are coming in, I mean, most of the time when kids are on IEPs, they only have specific times that they're being pulled out of a classroom, or maybe not even pulled out, but being worked with within a classroom. How is that working for kids having to, I mean, their regular schooling is remote at home, or are they coming to you for most of the day?
So it really depends. We did not adopt like a one size fits all model, because that's not what special ed is. It's supposed to be individualized. So in general, most kids are, if they come to us in person, they are with us for about 3 hours per day. There are some outliers, but in general, most kids are with us 3 hours per day. And they are getting their direct services from either a special educator or a para or a speech pathologist or an OT during that time. But then you have, a whole bunch of kids who aren't coming in person. They opted to do their learning from home. So we have special educators logging on, working with them, supporting them through classwork, but also delivering direct services that way. So it's remote. But then we actually have a whole bunch of kids who are coming in, and their special educators are working from home, and the kiddo is getting supported by a para or a different special educator at school. So we really have a whole bunch of different things going on in order to make sure that we're meeting all the different needs that we have.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
impressive. And I am impressed.
Thank
that
you.
seems very difficult to try and do. But
Thank you. Yeah, it's happening. And then somewhere in there, we do have paras logging on to regular classes, supporting kids that way and doing check-ins with them when those classes aren't happening. So yeah, it's a lot, but I'm really excited that we were able to offer such a diverse menu of sorts given the circumstances. Yep.
Well, thank you very much. Dan, you have a question?
Yeah, I don't want to try to jump over top of Coral here, but I think she needs to toot her horn a little bit more. Just one of the things that that I thought of when I was there, that I witnessed at MRU, was, and I wanted to point this out, that some of the students who have IEPs are receiving their services there specific to their needs, but they're not separated from their peers. So some of those students are there for a 3-hour block, but they're also joining in with their regular grade level class and their teachers and interacting with the other students that way online. And then they have the para or the teacher right there in the physical classroom with them to be able to provide whatever additional support that they may need while they're basically mainstreamed. Just wanted to point that out. It's pretty awesome.
George?
Yes, I'd like to give a gold star out there to Coral. I mean, the description of all of the activities that she's given us, she must be moving like 60 to keep it all accomplished in any one day. So good show, Coral.
Thank you to both of you, to all of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I sorry about that, but yeah, really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we have reopening preliminary considerations, and I will move on to Dave for that.
Yes, thank you, Adrian. And actually, I'd just like to piggyback on a little bit of the opening updates, a few details for you that you may be interested more globally. Some of the principals mentioned the supervision piece at Mill River, just so that you know, we have Mill River based and elementary based administration in the building each day while the students are there, in addition to all of our health services nurses are there as well. Our elementary principals have worked out a rotation where there's a different person on site, and then between Tyler and Jen, they manage the Mill River side of that. So we're treating that like school, and we just have a handful of extra administrators, and having that presence. Whomever it was that mentioned, Mr. Wiedemann is now the second grade principal. That's it's real. The kids get to see all of these folks, which is a good thing. Someone also mentioned the volunteer seeking that we have been doing. Just to give you an update, we have 7 or 8 people that connected with us in that regard. Those reference checks and background checks are in process right now, and so we're just waiting to get the green light on those folks. Once we get back that everybody's good to go there, we'll publish their information. We have their permission to publish their information, and the overwhelming majority of those individuals are actually former educators. So we've got some good educational background interested in the volunteer piece. Another thing that's just worth you being aware of, and I'll keep you posted as it develops. At this moment in time, our enrollment is about 9% down from what we projected it to be for this year. If you were to ask what are the reasons, 2 pretty straightforward reasons. Some families have opted for homeschooling, as you know is the case across the state, where homeschooling numbers are significantly higher. And some families rooted primarily in the decision about the flags, but not entirely. I think it connects to remote learning as well, have opted for independent or private offerings for their children. So the challenge we have right now is we don't know exactly where everyone has landed yet, and it's not the right time to be harassing people about those types of things. What I mean by that is the state is running 4 weeks at least behind on processing homeschooling applications and then communicating that information to schools. So we know of a few families that have notified us that they're in the homeschool pipeline, but we don't yet have the state confirmation of that, but we just know where those folks have told us that they are. And when a student, say for example, a child enrolled at MSJ, when a child enrolls at MSJ, they're going to send us a records request, and that's the way that Mill River knows that that student is going somewhere else. But we're waiting for the dust to settle on a lot of that. So I'll keep you posted as those numbers develop over time. And if you're asking what does that mean for the long term, here's the risk. Less numbers of students in our local district translates to less ADM, which stands for average daily membership. And for those of you who've done the finance dance in the past, you know that that is a key factor in the state funding that we receive. Right now, the legislature is contemplating holding all districts harmless on ADM for this year because of the fact that homeschool applications are up all over the state and because of the COVID dynamic. I would not be at all surprised if we are held harmless on ADM and there's no financial impact, but that is out there as a possibility. If the legislature decided not to move on that, there could be that potential impact down the road, in addition to the COVID related fiscal crises that we know have been looming, but we just don't yet know the details on, because again, we're waiting on the legislature to take action in that regard. I'll pause there. I see Len's got a question for me before I go any further. Yes, sir. Yes, Len.
I have a question. Any numbers in terms of Mount Holly students coming to Mill River?
I don't have that off the top of my head. Tyler, is that a number that you have a good sense of at this moment?
Unfortunately, I do not. I can get that for you. I could probably get it for you before the end of the meeting. So let me do that, and I'll get back.
Thanks, Tyler. Len, to your question, I think there's some inherent likelihood that our remote learning decision may have pushed some Mount Holly or Ludlow students to say, hey, we're going to go over towards Green Mountain instead of coming over to Mill River, just because of their in-person offering. So I expect the numbers will be lower than the 30 that we were initially told, for sure. But Tyler, if you can track that number down, that'd be fantastic.
Any other questions? I don't need exact numbers. I was just wondering,
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm actually curious now about the number of that. Adrian, would you like me to move on to the
Yes, I would.
preliminary considerations for reopening? So again, just to remind the board, I established when we made the announcement on July 31st about us opening the year in remote learning, I set a target date of August 9th. That's my birthday. October 9th for the decision on what we would do as of November 1st. So that October 9th date is out there in the not so distant future. There are a number of factors that I am going to be reviewing on a weekly basis and tracking data on to help inform our decision about what our reopening status for November will be. And keep in mind that October 9th target date is to give families, teachers, schools, give everybody time to prepare for whatever November may end up looking like. Some of the key things that I'm watching in this regard. First, case counts in each of the towns in Rutland County and how those case counts correlate or don't correlate with the type of instructional delivery that the district where they're located is executing. So, just looking for the trends that may be existing there. We're also tracking nurses' office visits for our in-house operations to provide IEP services, tracking the types of things that we are seeing in terms of student needs, how many times we have to send students home for COVID type symptoms, how many students are not being let into buildings because of screenings, and we're just trying to track the patterns and see how those play out over time. We're also tracking our employee attendance, particularly on that in-person piece. I do believe that's a good sample size that gives us a sense on what general employee dynamics might be. And keep in mind, the availability of a teacher or support staff doesn't necessarily have to be tied to whether or not they are healthy. Any of these folks can be impacted by the health or concerns about health of a person in their family. So the domino effect of a lot of that is unique and challenging. And then one of the other key factors we're watching, truthfully, the factor that I have the largest concerns on at this point in time has to do with our custodial staff and the availability of our custodial staff. Right now, we are operating at about 50% strength overall. That is not entirely due to things that are COVID related. Some of that is just due to circumstances that come up with employees that sort out over time. But if you ask me if we could open in person tomorrow, the answer would be no, because we do not have enough custodians to safely and reasonably keep all of our facilities clean and in compliance with the guidelines that we have to follow. So that is my biggest concern at the moment in terms of pieces that could hold us up on possible reopening. And then I'm also just contemplating if we do get to a reopening point sometime sometime November 1st or afterwards, what that looks like. That our initial plan that we were working on all summer involved having our pre-K through 6 students in person 5 days a week, and then our 7 through 12 students on basically a 50-50 hybrid type of a setup. I'm contemplating, if we get to that point, what's the appropriate step to take to get there? Do we take an incremental step that's part way? Do we bring back maybe our absolute youngest students in person and keep older students remote for a while? How do we mix that up in order to effectively manage space, effectively manage staffing, and kind of take care of whatever the circumstances are around us? So all that is going on in my head and on spreadsheets that I'm looking at, and I'll keep you posted as that all develops in the coming weeks. By the next time we meet on October 7th, I will likely have landed on some sort of decision that I'll be able to talk to the board about. So in the interim, I'll be keeping you informed as things develop. And I may solicit your feedback and ideas about how to best approach some aspects of the process. Any comments or questions on that piece for me at all?
If I may.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Go ahead, Len.
Have you received any feedback from schools that have opened doing whatever binary, process stuff in terms of, I haven't heard anything in terms of cases.
Yeah, so good question and multiple answers to that, Len. So the first answer I have for you is there have been a handful of student cases in Vermont. There are 2 schools in particular that were affected. Crossett Brook Middle School, which is up in the Waterbury area. I'll do a poor job of trying to tell you which town. Shut down
Duxbury.
thank you, Duxbury. Shut down for at least a week due to COVID cases and the quarantines that need to take place. There was also a case or 2 at Hartford High School, which the Department of Health, working with them, they decided that they did not need to shut the school down, but they did have some positive cases there. I have a meeting with all of my colleagues in the Superintendent's Association tomorrow, where we'll be connecting on a bunch of things, but one of those is how's it going and what are you seeing? So I expect after tomorrow I'll have a better kind of sense of statewide. In terms of regionally, Rutland and Bennington County, I met with my colleagues on Tuesday morning, and that basically that was the 1 week in point. And what I heard from most folks was, hey, generally going pretty well. The kids are adapting very well. We're starting to see some adult staffing challenges where people have to stay home, et cetera. But on the student side, things appeared to be going okay. So again, Len, as I get more information in the coming days, I'll keep the board posted with what I'm hearing.
Well, and I just want to say, the more information we can give to the public, I think the better off we are. But give them a feel for where we're moving forward.
Yeah, you bet. I don't know about you folks. Yesterday, the governor does a lot of press conferences. He's down to 2 a week now. I think it was more, but yesterday he had Dr. Fauci on, and I was curious, what Dr. Fauci would have to say. And I also have to be careful whenever I'm curious about something to make sure that I'm not feeding my own biases. I'm trying to hear what he's actually saying and what that means. And what I heard Dr. Fauci say pretty clearly is, in Vermont, you folks are obviously doing some things well, and you need to keep doing what you've been doing. And I thought, okay, that'll be really interesting how that gets received by different people. Someone like me who leads a school system and is concerned about the safety and health of kids and staff thinks, okay, does what we've been doing mean nobody's been at school? We haven't had people together in groups since March. Is that what we've been doing? Or is it what we've been doing for the past week in some locations? And it's going to be curious to see how that plays out in the coming weeks. I was told by one of the physicians, one of the infectious disease docs from UVM with the committee that I'm on, that in order to truly analyze the success of the opening of the school year, they need at least 4 weeks worth of data. They need 2 full cycles of the virus in order to be able to tell, is this going okay or not? So really, anything sooner than about the date that we're going to try to make a decision about November, around that October 8th date, anything sooner than that is potentially premature for us to make a call based on data. So there's still some gut instinct involved in this. But like you said, Len, information matters. And if the more we're aware of, the better informed we'll all be able to be. Yeah, Tyler.
So a quick count between Mount Holly and Black River, we're at 25. So we originally looked at 20, so we're a little above.
Nice.
That's good. That's a higher number than I expected.
Mm-hmm. Hey, could I make a quick announcement? If you're not muted, unless you're saying something, try and mute your microphone, because sometimes sounds that aren't loud to you are loud on the microphone. Does anyone else have questions for Dave? Comments? Hearing and seeing nothing.
I think I saw Jody's hand, Adrian.
Oh, Jody.
It's more just a quick comment. In the discussion about our reopening, I just wanted to point out that our nursing staff, under the direction of Beth, has been going above and beyond, pre-thinking every problem in detail, and communicating like crazy. And that has really helped me feel really well prepared. So I know that they're not represented in the groups here tonight. So I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you. That's a good thing to notice. If we don't have anything else for Dave right then, the board had received a letter from Debbie McPhee about spectators at sporting events, and I was going to turn to Dave to lead this conversation because I'm not really sure of all the ins and outs. So Dave.
Yeah, happy to do that. And it may shock the board. I actually wrote some thoughts down. You know that I usually wing it on things with you. So I wrote some thoughts down that I may end up reading from. But essentially, one of our community members, Debbie McPhee, wrote a thoughtful piece to the board asking the board to consider directing the administration to change the stance we've taken regarding no spectators at our sporting events. I also believe that most of you may have received a letter today from Gary Severance, who's another community member, to the same effect. And both letters were encouraging and positive and offered proposals for solutions. And, we felt it was important to bring it to the board. when I talked with Adrian, I just asked for the opportunity to explain the thinking that went into that decision, and then kind of paint a picture for the board on if this is something you wish to entertain and direct us otherwise, just what some of the dynamics of that may be. I have asked Kim and Tyler to be available to fill in any gaps that I don't do a very good job of addressing, but I'll just ask you to bear with me as I touch on a few thoughts here. So first, I am very sensitive, and we are very sensitive to the cognitive dissonance that exists around the concept of us believing that it is not appropriate to bring students and staff full-time back into schools for school, but to create athletic environments where we have spectators. There's a disconnect there that as a leader, I personally struggle with, and how do I make sense out of and justify that one is not okay, but the other is okay? So that is a part of the conversation that we were having as leaders rooted around Mill River. And again, that decision, as we discussed it and thought about it, that's a decision that Kim Maneri is the athletic director, and then Jen McLemore and Tyler Wiedemann as the Mill River administrators. We worked together to talk through all the dynamics that I'm sharing with you now. Another piece that's worth everyone being aware of, the in-person activities that we do have going on currently are happening in very controlled circumstances when it comes to the numbers of people involved, the locations, the distancing that's in effect, and those are managed very tightly by school district employees and by school district administrators. We did commit, and we did believe strongly that making athletics happen for our athletes was really important. We are spending a lot of staff, coach, and administrative energy to making sure that those activities are organized and that athletes and coaches are protected. We do have strong concerns that adding another layer to manage, and I don't want to treat people as something to be managed, but if any of you have ever managed large athletic contests, there's a level of management that goes into that. And I'm probably overusing the word, but it is relevant. Adding that additional layer of focus, we're concerned about it taking away from us being able to focus effectively on the safety protocols for students and coaches. We do also believe that the potential for bringing other folks in from other communities to the schools could be problematic when we look at the idea of keeping keeping a perimeter around Mill River, if you will. The more that you invite in, the more risk of possible exposure there is for everyone. We've got concerns about visiting fans. And that's because visiting fans, although they are there to support their athletes, they have much less stake in the successful operation of our athletic programs and the health and safety of our athletes and coaches and our adherence to the health guidelines. It's very difficult to control for who shows up. And even when we looked at concepts like, could we limit access? Could we assign tickets? Could we say that certain permutations of family sizes were allowed to come or not come? We are confident that people would expect to be granted exceptions to that. We are concerned that keeping households separate, as would be required, would be incredibly difficult for us. We are very worried that patrolling and policing mask compliance would become a full-time job in and of itself and not a job that anyone wants to participate in. And then the question becomes, how do you deal with that? And how do you handle the possible focus that takes away from athletes? We have made arrangements for our athletic competitions to be live streamed and available on television. So we wanted to make sure that there were opportunities provided there. And then we had concerns. We pushed the live stream option because we had concerns about what do we do when an event hits capacity? When I think about the concept of a soccer game, for example, that may bring 15 players to a side plus a handful of coaches, you're very quickly up to about 40 people just when it comes to competitors. And when you add in a couple family members or more, and then anyone else that may randomly show up for an event, we're very quickly approaching or surpassing the limits that have been imposed upon us by the governor. And we had concerns about how to control that or manage that. And then another piece that just went into our decision-making was the concept of fairness kind of across the board. And that does not mean we're interested in penalizing anyone because of what other folks lack. But it's fair to say that student programs across the state have been affected by COVID, and they've been affected by remote learning, as an example. Our students and students all over Vermont have to cope with the loss of things that they're excited about and that they value. And that's why we wanted to make sure that we had sports programming options. But as you know, we do have other students that are faced with not being able to participate in their preferred activities and options. And some of those activities, even if they are able to occur, certainly will not be able to occur with visitors or spectators, because the health guidelines that we have to follow for things like theater or for things like music, they prohibit us from having visitors or spectators participate. You know that I'm a former athlete, a former coach, former athletic director. I'm an athletic parent. I see, love, and care about the value of what our athletic programs provide for our kids and families. But I'm also a theater and music parent. And I look at the impact for our students in those programs who are missing out altogether on some of their collective group opportunities. And we do believe that at the very least, being able to provide a focused and valuable experience to our athletes so that they could have seasons was a really important thing. We know that a decision to prohibit spectators from the events can be seen as unfair and possibly taking something away. But administratively, we felt like it was better to provide something as opposed to potentially having nothing to offer. In terms of what could happen next, what could occur from here, you know this as well as I. The board could, of course, decide to direct the administration to approach this differently. If that were to occur, I would just encourage the board to think about what that means for other decision making and what that means for other operational day-to-day pieces in terms of how decisions get made and how they play out. I would encourage the board, if you did determine to direct us to bring spectators into sporting events, it is important to understand that the process overall is logistically very difficult, especially in a pandemic. And there would be increased virus risk both here and far brought onto the Mill River campus. Now, you could counter that and say, hey, numbers in Vermont are low, we shouldn't be worried, et cetera. But I think we can make the assumption, in the same way that the governor yesterday said, we knew when we opened schools that kids were going to get sick. That was said very clearly. We know if we open our campus to more people that we will bring more virus load onto the campus. I'd also suggest that I mentioned that the 2 letters we received spoke about volunteer-based groups that could help with the process. And I think that is fantastic and noble and honorable and kind to make those offers. However, having done this type of work before, I have concerns about how the process plays out when people cannot or will not follow the expectations. And I am not very interested personally in putting volunteers in a situation that may very well turn heated and may very well turn volatile. And those folks don't have either the training or the authority to do anything about the situations that they're thrust into. And then the final piece I want to share for the board, just as you think about this, it's important for you to know that winter sports are very much still in the conversation. In fact, the first meeting of the committee that's going to be making the decision regarding winter sports occurred last week. There's another meeting occurring tomorrow and probably weekly until early November would be my guess. At this moment in time, I can tell you on pretty good authority that there's a very strong possibility that many of our indoor winter sports may not occur at all. I think there is a possibility that outdoor winter sports like alpine snowboarding, we can understand the reasons why those might be able to occur if the mountains are willing to let them occur. But sports like basketball, sports like wrestling are very much, cheerleading are very much under the microscope in terms of what's involved, it being indoor activity, close proximity, et cetera. I would suggest to the group, again, on pretty good authority, that if any of those indoor sports are allowed to occur, the likelihood of spectators is very close to zero. And that's because of the concerns that the doctors have about how indoor sporting events during the wintertime tend to occur. I'm sharing that with you now because you need to know that this is not a one-time issue. This issue is going to be on the radar for a while, and it's going to become a more prominent concern in terms of how spectators get handled. So I just want the board to have the full spectrum of our thinking and my thinking as you engage in some likely conversation about it. I guess I'd like to pause and allow Kim and Tyler to weigh in, and then I will be quiet and let the board do what they need to do. Is that okay, Adrian?
Yes.
Kim, Tyler,
Kim?
anything you'd like to add?
I would just like to add, with Mount Anthony School District is also remote as a district, very similar to ours. And they as well are not allowing spectators at their home events or practices. So it's pretty consistent with the two districts that are not in person but fully remote, that we are consistent with what we are doing athletic wise. Just wanted to add that in.
Tyler or Jen, did you want to add anything? Thank you.
I don't. There's nothing really to add at this point. I completely agree with both Dave and Kim.
Okay, I will open the conversation to the board. Has everybody read the letter? Len, hold on. I'm just going to open up board discussion.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure. Has
Don
everybody
has
read the
something to
letter from Ms. McPhee? It was sent to us on September. Oh no, I can't find it. I have it up on my. I guess. Is it okay to start the discussion, people?
That letter was sent, Adrian, just prior to our last board meeting, so it was probably around September 1st or so. It was just
I
before.
happily found it and flagged it, but I have so many flagged items that they no longer stand out. They just joined another thing. I guess if anyone can't find it, speak up and we'll try and get you a copy. But otherwise, I'm opening the floor for comment because we're going to have to take action on the letter. So,
So Adrian, I've had more than just a few conversations with folks about this, as I'm sure you can imagine. A lot of those conversations were surrounding people's perspective of, well, it's not like it's a lot of people. And I said, well, you have to consider one of the things that Dave mentioned is that you're going to be bringing in, 12 to 14 or possibly more players who all have family that want to come too. And, it becomes more and more challenging to try and manage the numbers and keeping people separated the way we would need to. And it's just really a logistical nightmare. And I found that once they factored in that, they hadn't really been thinking about the other team. You only think about your team and your fans and your fellow parents. I found that once I kind of mentioned that and they factored that in, I got a lot of, oh yeah, well, yeah, okay, I can see that now, or I understand. And I think people get it. As a board member, I totally get it. As a parent, I don't like it, but I understand it. And I think that the more people I talk to and just kind of laid the whole situation out to, the more they understood it. I also think that one thing that has happened since we received that letter that I think I also bring up and makes a big impact is that event in Killington, where a bunch of people got together, were all outdoors. The venue was doing everything that they were supposed to do. And 14, 15 people still ended up getting COVID. And that really hammers home the idea that outdoors isn't necessarily the safe and risk-free environment that everybody thinks it is. And again, that was another thing that I found really resonated with folks, was realizing that even if you do everything the way you're supposed to, it doesn't take very much for things to get out of hand and for the virus to spread. So I just thought I would share that as part of this discussion for everybody to consider.
Len?
I really have a problem with us not allowing people to come and see their kids in their senior year, junior year, whatever it is, because we're worried about this virus. I understand. I understand why we should be. But other districts are doing it. And I haven't heard anything about other districts having all kinds of outbreaks. It's not happening. It's not happening. So, man, how much are we gonna seclude our kids when it doesn't do any good? It doesn't make any difference. I mean, you're playing 7-on-7 touch football. Give me a friggin' break. Nobody does that. And if you can't allow parents to come and watch their kids who they have grown up, who now are seniors, and they want to see them play their senior year, and we're not going to allow them, I have a tough time with that. That's my opinion.
John, you have more to say?
Yeah, can I just point out that there haven't been any games yet for anybody? Games don't start until next week, so we don't have anything happening because there haven't been any games played yet. I will point out that I don't know of many, if any, professional sports that are allowing visitors or allowing fans. I think a lot of colleges have closed down their programs entirely. So there isn't a lot of information out there that says what will happen if we do let spectators in, because it just hasn't happened, because they're not, it's not happening to, those events aren't taking place.
Len, hold on a minute.
VPA sent us, posted what could happen. The VPA did, Vermont Principals Association. They sent it out. So we ignore that, and because we have a better idea.
Thanks, Len. Does anyone else have any comments? George, you need to unmute.
Well, it's a tough one, no question about it. And I appreciate Len's comments, I really do. But I guess my comment is that we're in this for the kids, to provide them education, to provide them opportunities for the sports where and when we can. But again, if we focus on the kids and keeping them as safe as possible, then do we want to take a risk or not? I mean, that's the question. And I guess I would come down on the side of not taking a risk if we don't have to.
Does anyone else have anything that they would like to add to the conversation? I can't see everybody, so. Yes, Len?
Are we going to make a motion?
Well, I was going to wait and see if anyone else had anything to say, and then,
Okay.
yes, I'll accept a motion. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments? I guess I have a comment before we do that, and one of them is I am very hesitant to take the decision onto myself and to the board when we have authorized our administration to do all the studying, do all the, all of the research and try and figure out how it would work and how difficult it would be. And we're a fully remote school. I cannot see how we can have 30 to 60 people, which is what it will be on a soccer game if every kid has 2 parents in the stands. And I honestly don't know how you could possibly control that. But yes, I will accept a question now. If I believe the question should be, will we?
I would like to make a motion that we
Okay, go ahead.
allow fans into the game
Do
this
you want
fall.
to be more specific with that, or are you suggesting that we
No,
open the
just
stands up
allow fans to attend the games outside this fall.
without limitation? And
Well, I
is
think
that
we
your
follow
motion?
the VPA limitations, which is 150 people.
Okay. Will anyone second that?
I'll second that for discussion reasons.
Okay. The question is open for discussion. Do we have any further comment or discussion? Dave, can you see other people? Because I only see about 6 people.
Yes, Adrian, I can. Doug, I see his hand.
Doug, would you like to say something?
Yeah, questions come up in my mind, and because of where we are in our life type of situation, but are we looking at parents being two people? Or is that parents and maybe a parent who's divorced and the other parent has a husband, and so you're talking four people?
The question
That
is,
would-
the question that was raised is without limitation other than the VPA 150 people.
Yeah, I think the only thing that might work is if we make sure that we keep them separate. And we have to have somebody there that will clarify and make sure that that's the case. If you're getting people, husband and wife, those people are already living together anyway. If one of them's sick, the other one is, and chances are neither of them are. That came with me about 3 weeks ago. That thought I was going to get sick, ended up not being, and I was glad I wasn't. But the whole family was going to be under quarantine, all four people in the house. If we can keep them separated and not so much have those there from other places, the other team type of stuff, we'll have to deal with ours and ours alone. But we're going to have to control that if that's the case. Thanks.
Okay. The question is that was given and seconded is, will we open up to the VPA limitation of 150 people without restraint as to who it is? So further comments?
So Adrian, I would just like to add something. If this was to go in that direction, it's then based on the school. They come up with their own spectator policy as to how many spectators per family they would allow into games. And then that would be sent out to all the schools that would be coming to Mill River. And it's just really important to understand that none of this is going to happen unless the state moves to stage 3. And we have not gotten that go ahead yet. We are hoping that the end of this week we will have that information. But if that does not come, we just continue to practice until the state moves to stage 3. So again, if this was to be, spectators were to be allowed, it would then come back to myself and Tyler and Jen, and we would come up with a spectator policy for Mill River, and that would be sent out to each school that would be attending or playing us at Mill River.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Other board members? Any other administrators? Anybody have anything that they would like to say before I call the question? All right. The question that was offered, or the motion that was offered by Len, is that we allow spectators without any qualification.
No via VPA qualifications.
Well, legal numbers. I'm sorry. I should say that, Len, but I mean, we can't go against the
Right.
the actual rules, but
the VPA criteria are based on the governor's gathering limits that have been established. So, yeah.
But the board will not limit themselves the numbers that will come from the VPA. So I will ask for all in favor of that question.
No, if we have to limit it to what the VPA says. That was my motion.
Right, but we don't know what that number is, Len. Right now, our
That is, it's 150.
Right now, it's 150.
Thank you.
Len.
It was in the Herald.
Okay.
3 weeks ago.
Let me rephrase. We will allow spectators to the limit as offered by the VPA. Okay. Thank you.
Adrian, may I make a quick comment before you vote, real quick?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I just want to offer something of comparison, if I may, just to give a little bit of point of view. When we had our diploma distribution at the end of this past year, we set forth extremely strict guidelines in terms of who could be on campus and when. And we had every means to enforce that. And it was very well understood by the community of who could attend and who could be out of the car and what have you. A large part of our day was policing that. It was pushed, it was taken advantage of, and people did not follow the rules. And I fear that we can put the best policy out there, but inevitably the rules will not be followed, and then we have to police that, and that gets very cumbersome. And that's it.
I actually have another question for you, Tyler, and probably Kim. How would bathrooms and that kind of thing be handled? Would we be able to provide that? Can't have that many people
I don't.
without access to bathrooms.
We've discussed this preliminary just for if we were to do this, we would probably have to invest in porta potties because the inside facility would just be. I would not want to have that many visitors inside the building.
Okay, thank you.
But Adrian, if that were to occur, there is no guarantee that porta potties are included in our building sanitation processes because that's not our property. We don't own it, et cetera. So there are built-in concerns about 100 people using 3 porta potties and how that plays out over time.
And-
Also, I would suggest that, you know, if we do have spectators, even if the board directs us to do so, it is still the decision of the superintendent and the athletic director and principal whether or not an athletic season continues. So we could face scenarios where spectator actions affected the ability of athlete seasons continuing. And we frankly don't want to see our athletes potentially put in that situation, whether it's due to home or visitor spectators. It's a real concern I forgot to mention earlier.
And
Okay.
one other
Well, thank
quick
you for
thing-
adding that.
One other quick thing to Dave's point, you know, porta potties is nothing we budgeted for as well. Just one other aspect to it.
Okay, thank you. I have called the question, so all in favor? Dave, are you counting?
Sorry, I was speaking, but muted. I see Len and Doug as affirmative on that. Am I missing anyone, board members?
Please wave your hand.
So Len and Doug are in favor?
Okay, all people not supporting that question?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 7 hands, 8 hands. That doesn't make sense because we have 11 board members and we have, no, that does make sense. We have 10 people here tonight. So 8 people opposed.
Okay, so that question did not pass. I don't know if we want to continue this conversation with a different outcome, but I'm satisfied with what we have so far unless somebody is interested in continuing this.
Adrian, I think
Okay.
the next question has to do with just responding to those 2 letters. I don't know if that's something.
I haven't
like to-
seen the second letter, so I don't know what specifically Mr. Severance asked for.
I will share that with you momentarily.
Okay. Otherwise, I think the board would be directing you to answer the letters on our behalf. Unless Mr. Severance is asking for something different. Are you muted?
Mr. Severance is asking for consideration of his request. So I'd be happy
Okay.
to draft a response to both letters to issue to the 2 individuals, and then I can send that to you as the vice chair to check it out. Is that okay?
Sure. Yep, that's fine with me. Does anyone have anything else to add to that? Otherwise, we will move on. We have board professional development session topics for October, and I know that the new Title IX stuff has come out, and I believe, Dave, you had an idea of what PD you and Jody might want to do.
Yes. Sorry, I keep checking if I'm muted. Next week, I'm sorry, on October 21st, which is our second board meeting in October, we do have a professional development session scheduled then. Jody and I have been working through the new Title IX regulations, which are significant. They are cumbersome. They are long, and the board will also be required to adopt new policy related to those. So it's my belief that it would be good to spend that October 21st PD session going through a presentation on that Title IX, just to give you the lay of the land before we tackle that in policy committee and proceed from there. So that would be my request if it's okay with the board.
Do we have any comment from board members? Dave is watching.
I see some thumbs up. And for anyone wondering what the Title IX is about, it specifically relates to allegations of sexual harassment and how those are processed, investigated, and adjudicated over time. That's the focus of that new information.
Just you can share how long the policy that the VSBA
The
produced for
VSBA
that.
model policy is 26 pages long, I believe. So you can see that we
Just
have
to cheer everyone up.
some work to do.
Okay. if there's no further comment on that, we will go into committee business. Personnel, Len, I think you have contracts for us.
Yes, I do. Steve Allen, I would make a motion to hire Steve Allen as a para educator, 1.0 full-time equivalency as a sub in special education.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Or
Thank you.
George.
Any discussion? No, all in favor of Mr. Allen's contract being signed or being approved?
Looks all good, Adrian, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
I got one more.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, we were presented back on August 18th a list of fall coaches from Kim. Thank you very much, Kim. But you missed it. Dave missed it. I missed it. We all missed it. So I would like to make a motion that the fall coaches contracts be approved. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, George seconded. Any discussion? I know I've seen that list. I don't remember who's on it, but nobody stuck out in my mind as being anything that was an issue.
Adrian, I see John McKenna's hand.
Okay, John?
Just one little typo. I think there's a typo in Peter Roach's amount. It looks like it may be $300, and I think the decimal point's there's a comma in there, which the decimal's in the wrong spot.
Well, at least the decimal moved a positive direction as opposed to a more challenging direction, right, John?
Positive for him, positive
Kim,
for us, not so for him, but
Yeah, sorry, I'll make that change.
We'll get that fixed. Thank you, John.
Yeah,
it's still the lingering Sally Snarsky effect. I did have her as a teacher.
Well, that and you like soccer. You'd like him to stay. Anybody else? Okay. All in favor of signing the slate of coaches that was given to us a while ago?
Looks like all thumbs up, Adrian.
Cool. Len, do you have anything else that you would like to share?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Policy, BJ.
Oh, fun. Okay, so we did try to have a meeting yesterday, and in an attempt to make it easier for the public to connect, it actually made it harder. So we had a lot of public interest, and we were worried that not everybody was able to come on and join us. So we, at that meeting, decided to just postpone the meeting, and we were going to have another one on the 22nd. That is directly going to be related to the flag policy. I think based on the amount of public interest in that particular policy meeting, David, I think we're going to try and run it similar to our school board meetings. So there will be a live feed and a sign-up sheet for the commentary. And so we'll get that. I'm thinking, I've had some feedback about how quickly to make this go through. And based on some feedback on multiple places, probably should plan to have that policy, have at least 2 policy committee meetings focusing on this at a minimum. We want to do it right. I think in terms of equity, and we owe it to everybody that what this means is to really spend the time to make sure it is right and well written and addresses equity properly and addresses the free speech properly. So welcome anybody who wants to join us on the 22nd for that meeting. We'd be happy to have your input. And Just as a quick reminder, if there is any input, email me and Dave directly for feedback. So.
Okay. Thank you. Negotiations is actually me, and I don't have anything to update because we have a meeting on Monday. So we will move on to buildings and grounds. John?
Our next meeting will be October 6th, I believe, 6 o'clock. I think it'd be good just to have Gary give us an update on how things are going and if there's anything that he needs from us. So October 6th, 6 o'clock.
Okay. Does that interfere with, or is that impacting your policy meeting in October, BJ?
No, normally, what time's your building ground? Say that again.
It's 6.
6.
Yeah, we were contemplating moving it up, but I think we can still have the 5 o'clock one.
Okay.
As long as we get enough people that can join,
Okay.
I think we'll be good.
Okay. So both of those, policy and buildings and grounds, will be on October 6th.
Yes.
Thank you. Community engagement, Maria?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a meeting set up, or?
There is not a meeting set up at this
Okay.
time, but as soon as there is, word will be shared widely.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Finance, Liz.
Sorry, I'm like the slowest unmuter ever. Okay, good evening, everyone. I have one payroll, and I have pay orders for consideration this evening. If everyone would please mute themselves, I would appreciate it. I have a payroll warrant dated September 11th, 2020 in the amount of $521,981.03. And that's it. So that one payroll in the amount of $521,981.03. And I have the following pay orders. I have from the general fund a pay order from the FY20 budget in the amount of $1,457.28. Also from the general fund for fiscal year 21, I have a pay warrant in the amount of $62,446.09. Folks, could you please mute yourselves? I'm getting a lot of feedback. Thank you. And lastly, also from the general fund, fiscal year 21, I have a pay order in the amount of $7,550.93 for a grand total of $71,454.30. And I move that we accept the payroll and the pay orders as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any conversation or discussion of the pay orders? George?
I have not had a chance to look at the numbers. I will do so tomorrow. Doug, did you have a chance to look at them?
Yeah, I looked over it. It's kind of straightforward. The payroll is one thing, and then there was about a page and a half of the other stuff. It's relatively minor stuff, more getting things in. We got a lot of personal protective equipment in there, which is a good thing. We're keeping updated on the stuff that we need to keep our people and our kids safe. But everything's okay by me.
Anyone else? Okay. I'll ask for, well, all in favor? Okay. You too. Was that unanimous, Dave?
Looks good, Adrian. Looks good.
Okay, thank you.
And Adrian, I'll just add that our next finance committee meeting is September 28th. That's a Monday, and it's at 4:30.
Thank you. I almost forgot that. I have to add everything into
Adrian,
my book.
if I may.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Len.
Because I didn't say this before, the next personnel committee meeting will be October 7th. at 6 p.m. And I will be sending out the updated evaluation, updated superintendent's evaluation. So I should get that out next week. It won't happen this week. And we'll appreciate anybody's input.
Thank you. Perfect. We are down to transacting other legal business.
George?
Surprisingly enough, I do not have any items.
Okay, that's terribly disappointing, but okay. Agenda building, does anyone have anything that they want to add to the agenda? Yes, Len?
Just one comment since I'm being a bother tonight.
Oh, you're still on other legal business. Go ahead.
Well, I'm bothered when the public comment instructions take up more room than our agenda. I don't like that. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Well, I would note that in the time of COVID, it's certainly more complicated to have public comment than normal. So I wouldn't take it as a super, super bad thing, but your comment is noted. Agenda building?
Adrian, I'd request to deliver a reopening status update. We'll be right in the thick of decision making at that point.
Okay. Is there anything else that we have? No executive session? Do we have? So no one else, anything else for agenda building?
David,
What?
I'd be interested either from Brian or Andrew to hear about your plans for reassessment with the students.
You bet. Thanks, BJ.
Yep.
I think I would like to hear an update on the sports situation.
Sure.
Since
Can
that's
do.
obviously a hot button item that people are very concerned with, rightfully so.
And I would like to hear on the student numbers.
Yes. Got it all. Thank you.
I'll like to hear the update from the legislature on how much money they're going to be giving or taking. Other than that, I will be happy to hear an adjournment motion. Anybody?
So moved.
A second?
Yep.
Second.
Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Done.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night. Bye.